here at Edukemy helped in fulfilling the dreams of our 51 UPSC 2020 toppers. If you too have a dream of cracking the UPSC exam, then subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay up to date with the exam preparation. तैयारी आपकी, जिम्मेदारी हमारी.
Hi all of you, my name is Shabbir from Edukemy, and today's discussion is going to be very interesting. There are two types of questions I am repeatedly asked. एक तो बच्चे पूछते हैं, सर कैसे पढ़ा जाता है, कैसे प्लान करना है बताइए. Tell us sir, how can we plan our preparation and what to study when? That's one. And a second common question students ask me is, sir, how to keep ourselves motivated? How can we keep ourselves energized and into the work very sincerely? Now, these two perhaps are the questions that people ask repeatedly as and when the examination preparation starts becoming difficult or when they start facing reverses. Prelims kya nahi hua, mains kya nahi hua. Then these type of conversations start happening with us and we find ourselves repeatedly questioning and having self-doubt in our abilities. So yes, I agree, planning बहुत important है. बिना planning के बहुत कुछ होता नहीं है. Planning is a way of knowing where to go, when to go. It's a way of measuring our progress. But before you plan, you should also know who you are as a person. You should know what your strengths are, your weaknesses are, and also know the nature of the examination that you have got into, or the nature of the competition that you have gone into. Now, a very interesting thing about motivation, let me explain this. What happens is when we are feeling down, when we are feeling not confident, when we have self-doubts, we look for nice words. We look for encouraging words. We look for energizing, inspiring stories, which we get from the YouTube, we get on the books, we listen to somebody who we believe in, trust in. So what happens is, once we feel good about a particular thing, unfortunately, most of us don't work. We feel good and we go to sleep and we take a break and we take a rest. Motivation is a way of making you work. Motivation is not the solution to your problem of not feeling good. For example, say I am at the balcony of a tall building and I want to fly. And I want to feel motivated about, yes, it's possible. So I tell all the good words to myself. Yes, I can do it. Where there's a will, there is a way. And there are impossible things which has happened. And there is God. If we believe in the God, there's always some help from people who I can believe in. And I'll pump myself in. Does not mean if I jump from the balcony, I can actually fly. So if I motivate myself with all the good words and great stories and try to do impossible things, the thing will not happen. What we should be doing is motivate ourselves, then go back and start building the plane. We motivate ourselves and then start building a parachute. Motivate yourself and maybe build a ladder so that you can climb down from your balcony. So students don't study, students don't read, आप पढ़ते नहीं हो, आप revise नहीं कर रहे हो, आप class नहीं कर रहे हो, and you're feeling down. और फिर क्या करते हो आप अपने आप को मोटिवेट करते हो, अच्छे अच्छे वीडियोस देखते हो, what are the powers of IPS officer, how does an IAS officer live his day, you look at the incredible work done by civil servants, you get powered and motivated, फिर क्या करते हो आप लोग, you feel nice and you go to sleep. You feel nice and then you convince yourself, it is a nice dream to work towards, and then you actually don't study. Your study requires, you have to open your books. The study requires, you have to make your notes. Your study requires, you must write answers. Your study requires, you must revise repeatedly. The part of preparation is giving tests. I've seen students, they motivate themselves and they feel very nice. And then they don't give the tests. They don't give the tests, they feel bad. And then again, they look for nice motivating words. They again feel nice and confident about कि अगले बार दे देंगे, and the same cycle continues. So guys, motivation and good words and encouraging words are a way to do your actual work. and not simply feel good and keep quiet. So motivation, that is why in most circumstances does not help. Motivation talks don't help. Motivation videos don't help. Why? Because they make you feel good for some time, but they actually don't help you do the proper work. Proper work comes from discipline. Proper work comes from you having that sense of your competencies and you willing to work and resolve those gaps. Okay, so for students who tell me, who ask me, so how can we motivate ourselves? That's not the right way of approaching the issue. And the second thing I'm talking about is plan your preparation. That's why I thought of this interesting one. That plan your preparation, but first know who you are. Who you are as a student, who you are as an aspirant, who you are in terms of your strengths and weaknesses, and importantly, who you are in terms of what stage of the preparation you are in. Look at the board for 2 minutes. I'll explain what I mean by this. In the UPSC preparation for civil services, there are 4 or 5 stages through which you have to proceed. One is the stage of knowing your basics. The second is the stage of syllabus completion. Syllabus completion. Then you have the stage of consolidation. Consolidation. Then you have the stage of updation plus advanced concepts plus learning answers writing. And then you have the stage of tests. Tests and repeated practice. I have talked about this aspect in some of my earlier videos and webinars also. Your preparation for the examination requires you go through all of these stages. When I say basics, basics implies your NCRTs. Basics implies reading, at least initiating yourself into newspapers, developing an interest in current affairs. This is the basics of writing, reading, and awareness building around issues which are important, events, issues which are important in terms of their implications. Start having interest in those. This phase is the phase when you actively enter into the exam preparation, which is syllabus completion. Syllabus completion, if it is optional paper, it takes around 5 or 6 months. If it is GS, you require approximately 10 to 12 months to do justice with the syllabus. Then is the time for consolidation. Consolidation is when whatever you have read here, you have organized those into themes, into topics, all notes are made, all summaries are made. Consolidation, essentially means you have referred to the standard books, you have your notes in place, you have summarized your lectures, you know your syllabus very well, and you have a fair idea about the previous year questions. This I call as consolidation. On an average, the consolidation can take 1, 2, or 3 months sometimes. Generally, 1 and 2 months are good for consolidation. Once this is done, you get into updation. These are discussions and study beyond your regular syllabus. This is about adding current affair-based discussions. My assessment is, in every paper that you give, approximately 50 to 60% of the paper is increasingly beyond the syllabus. The questions asked are not directly from the words of syllabus. Yes, there is a linkage, of course. It's not entirely out of syllabus, but to anticipate those questions, you need to have some additional understanding of the topics. So you need to do advanced concepts. You need to update the concepts and also add some bit of learning to write answers. Students ask me, sir, why can't we learn answer writing here? Oh, yes, you can learn. But the answer writing here will not help because you do not know the entirety of syllabus. So yes, do learn answer writing. But the actual answer writing happens once you have consolidated your content. Dekho, in answer writing or the type of questions that they ask, you need to link a lot of topics. You need to relate a lot of topics. And it's impossible you can relate the topics without having studied the entire syllabus. That's why even if you are learning answer writing here, okay, the actual effective answer writing happens here. That's about 5 or 6 months after you have started optional or about 10, 12 months after you have begun your GS. So it is after completion of this, you get into the answer writing. And finally, you are having your tests and practice, revisions and re-revisions. This is the requirement of the examination. How much time it will take, what duration you have to put in, that comes a bit later. So like I said, okay, you must plan your preparation, but first know who you are. What I mean by this is, first know where you are in this stage of preparation. You cannot do everything at the same time. That is the first aspect of conversation. Now, when you're planning for the examination, you have to know what type of student or aspirant you are. I identify there are 4 types of aspirants. One are the beginners. Beginners, I also call them as explorers. Okay. Then we have the first timers. First timers who are committed to give their first attempt within a year. Then there are repeaters. Repeaters are those who have already given the prelims, who have already given the mains, but have not qualified but have not succeeded in getting into the interview. And then we have those who are, I would call them as almost there. Almost there. Okay. They have given their mains, they have qualified, or they have missed the mains by a very narrow margin. Maybe 15, 20 marks, 10, 20 marks, that kinds. Or those who have probably given the interview, okay, but again missed out in a very narrow range, or those who have qualified but are looking to improve their ranks. So the difference between these 3 categories is not much. It's a matter of few marks. Okay, generally so these guys who have given the mains but not qualified, the marks you have got here from the cutoff is a big gap. These have given the mains but not qualified, but the gap from the cutoff is less. So you must first decide which type of aspirant you are, which type of student you are. The beginners or explorers, mostly, these are right now outside the exam cycle. Outside the exam cycle. They probably are in college, or they are probably thinking of appearing. These are those who have got into the cycle. Now they are probably trying to cover the syllabus. They are trying to cover the syllabus. Most of these are in the classes. They are doing their foundation courses. They are trying to complete the syllabus. The difference between the beginners, explorers, and the first timers are the beginners, they are doing their basics. Whereas the first timers, they have done the basics. Basic is what? Remember, basics are NCRTs, basics are initiation into newspapers, basics are having increasingly involving themselves in the current affair issues. So in our study ecosystems, most students don't differentiate these two. You think you're first timers, but you actually are beginners and explorers. You think you are good for the examination for the first attempt, but most of you have not done the NCRTs. Most of you have not read newspapers ever. Most of you don't even have interest in current affairs. So if you jump into classes and the syllabus completion without this base, you will struggle a lot. So when you are planning, when people ask me, sir, can you help us plan? This is my first question. Who you are, plus tell me. The person who is here, he cannot use the plan of these students. A person who is here, he cannot plan according to these students. The moment you start off here, many of you are more keen about how to write answers. You are keen about how to read advanced concepts. Okay, you are here, okay, but you are struggling with the basics. So this is a very important distinction. In your planning process, please make sure that you understand your level of skills and competencies as of now. These students who are the beginners, these students probably are in the classes or doing their jobs. For most of them, they cannot put more than 15 or 20 hours per week. Why? Because they are in the college and they are in some jobs. So every day they study 2 to 3 hours, that's good enough. So 2-3 hours a day into 7 days. 15 to 20 hours a week is what they can manage. So their planning is different. The first timers, I assume, are completely devoted to the preparation. These type of students, effectively, you have about 8 to 10 hours a day. You should be capable of putting approximately around 50 to 60 hours a week. That should be the target of these people. Okay, of course, some of this is in the form of the classes you attend, and some of this will be your self-study. So first know who you are. Okay, are you the beginner who can put only 2 or 3 hours a day? Okay, or are you into the cycle? But different stage of competence, you can put in 8 to 10 hours a day. A very important aspect of your planning is that some things you have to account for. You can't ignore it. So must account for limits, and must include in any plan. Okay, what are the must account for limits and the must include in any plan is number 1, 8 to 10 hours of daily sleep. Don't compromise on this. Okay, you cannot sustain your preparation if you sleep for less than 8 hours or 7 hours. So it varies. Different people have different type of requirements in terms of their body sleep needs. Don't compromise this. This is a must account for limit. A second must account for limit is know the type of person you are in terms of your preferred time of study. Your preferred time of study. Some of you are good waking up early and studying. Some of you are good studying late in the night. So that's your choice. Okay, some of you are more effective if you sit late, and some more effective if you wake up as early as 4 or 5 o'clock. Generally, the advice is wake up early morning, but I will not put that type of a constraint on you. That's for you to know. But include that in your plan. What type of a person you are in terms of preferring your study hours. The third thing that you should know is that it's impossible to devote effectively more than 8 to 10 hours a day to study. So 8 to 10 hours a day for sleep and 8 to 10 hours a day for studies. And understand, this is on an average. If you are a beginner, you cannot put more than 2 to 3 hours a day. But if you are a first timer, devoted to studies, if you are a repeater or somebody almost there, you can put 8 to 10 hours, and I think that's the upper limit. Of course, when the examination is nearer, when the papers are nearer, maybe 1 month before that, fine. You can go for 12 hours, 15 hours a day. That's understandable. But on average, you cannot study for more than 8 to 10 hours a day on the table with the books. And if you sit down, this is the time you actually sit. You actually sit on the table with books. But for most, the effective study is going to be about 6 to 8 hours. So if you sit for 8 to 10 hours, the effective study is 6 to 8 hours a day. Now, these are some things that you have to acknowledge when you are planning your study timetable. That don't compromise on sleep. Find your preferred time of study, and you must be ready to put in 8 to 10 hours a day if you are devoted for civil services preparation alone. A fourth very important thing to acknowledge is, know your strengths. Know your strengths and your weakness. Like for some of us, we're comfortable with science subjects because maybe we come from science background. Some of us are very good with the humanities subject. Some of us are very comfortable with memorizing. Some of us have a flair in writing. For some of us, the discipline comes naturally. So know your strengths. Know what you are good at. Know what your gaps are. You need to have a very honest assessment of your ability. This, if you fool, you are going to suffer the consequences. Know your strengths and know your weaknesses before you set out to plan. And very importantly, know the demand of the exam. Know your syllabus. Know the syllabus. Now, this looks like a very important thing and something of a common sense. But unfortunately, lot of people who enter the examination, they do not know the exam demands. Lot of assumptions. And many of them, surprisingly, don't even know the syllabus. In fact, I won't be exaggerating if I say a lot of teachers also don't understand the demand of the examination. They teach mechanically, students learn mechanically. Lot of mentors and people who guide, even they falter on the syllabus. They do not know what's to be studied and which is more important. And even students falter in knowing the syllabus and how to plan for it. You should all know, the type of questions asked, you have to be very familiar with. Be familiar with the previous year's questions. So there are 2-3 things I would like to emphasize on. This is the first in the series where I'll help you plan your preparation. The first series where I'll help you arrange and organize your preparation. Before that, 3-4 things on which I'm emphasizing. Number 1, motivation videos and talks are themselves not going to be enough. Motivation videos and talks. So stop investing too much of time in keeping yourself motivated. What matters is the actual work. What matters is the actual work. This is more important than simply watching inspirational talks. The third important thing, I said, know yourself. Know who you are. Know who you are in terms of what stage of preparation you are in. Are you an explorer? Are you a first timer? Are you a repeater? Or are you almost there types? The almost there types, my suggestion to you is don't take any advice from anybody if you yourself are not convinced about it. Almost there types, you must develop your own strategies. Find out what works for you. Find out what is your problem and gap and why you missed out that last 5, 6, 10, 15 marks because of which you didn't qualify. But yes, a bit more planning with support of teachers could be for the other category of students. And be honest here. Just because you have given the first attempt does not mean you know the basics. Just because you have joined a foundation course does not mean you have the basics in control. So are you an explorer? Are you a first timer, genuine sense? And are you a repeater where you must do something more to finally qualify? So know who you are. And then I gave you a list of what are those things that you can't ignore. You have to add as a part of your planning. Don't miss out on 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Know that you cannot study for more than 8 to 10 hours a day on an average. If you sit for 8 to 10 hours a day on an average, your effective study is going to be about 6 to 8 hours. So learn to acknowledge that. And then like I said, please know what type of person you are. Are you an early riser? Are you a late night study person? Plus your strengths and weaknesses. So this is the first in the series of videos I've planned for how to prepare for civil service examination. And some of the insights I will share, I'm sure you can use for other exams and studies also. See you again. Keep watching us on YouTube.